Now to another big event for President Trump at the World Economic Forum in Davos, Switzerland. This morning, he launched his so-called Board of Peace. It's designed to oversee Gaza. The president also tried to calm the concerns of NATO allies over his demand to take control of Greenland. He says they sorted out a framework of a future deal, his words. Ed O'Keefe is in Davos watching all of this for us. Ed, good morning. What is the latest?
Well, good morning. You know, after weeks of focus on Greenland, the president is spending his final hours overseas today focused on the two biggest foreign policy challenges that he faces. He's meeting with Ukraine's Volodymyr Zelensky, telling reporters he wants to get that done, the war between Ukraine and Russia. And as you said, he's launching what he calls the Board of Peace to help rebuild the Gaza Strip. But notably, there were several close American allies who didn't show up.
You're the biggest people, the most important people in the world.
Davos was the place President Trump officially launched his Board of Peace, a new body to help resolve the conflict in Gaza. On the list, more than a dozen nations, including Saudi Arabia and NATO ally Turkey. But notably absent today, several close American allies like France, the United Kingdom, and Israel. The president has previously said the board could replace some duties of the United Nations.
But there's tremendous potential with the United Nations, and I think the combination of the Board of Peace with the kind of people we have here, coupled with the United Nations, can be something very, very unique for the world.
But it was Trump's threats to take over Greenland that dominated discussions at Davos this week. And now
we have a concept of a deal. I think it's going to be a very good deal for the United States, also for them. And we're going to work together on something having to do with the Arctic as a whole, but also Greenland, and it has to do with the security, great security, strong security, and other things.
The president said the breakthrough came after a meeting with the head of NATO, posting he will not be imposing the tariffs on Denmark, which controls the island, and 7 other European nations. He also vowed not to use the military to capture Greenland.
I don't have to use force. I don't want to use force. I won't use force.
But he attacked NATO allies as unreliable partners.
We want strong allies, not seriously weakened ones.
North Carolina Republican Senator Tom Tillis called the president's rhetoric on Greenland a false crisis.
The fact that the president says U.S. military involvement in taking Greenland is off the table, does that ease your concerns?
No, because it was never on the table. I mean, that's a false concession. If anybody thinks that the U.S. Congress would have stood for any sort of troops moved to Greenland, I believe we'd have veto-proof majorities within 2 weeks.
While Democrats in the crowd, like Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear, said even though Trump's backed off his threats, they damaged relationships.
The president's speech was dangerous, disrespectful, and unhinged. We are less safe when people believe that the United States isn't committed to the NATO alliance.
It's all left Europe frustrated. The German chancellor urged unity during what he called a new era of politics.
We have entered a time of great power politics. Today, its very foundations have been shaken.
Now on Greenland, 2 diplomatic sources tell CBS News there is no agreement for U.S. control of ownership in that framework, ownership of Greenland, despite the president saying that he's set up an infinite deal or is working towards an infinite deal. The White House and State Department have not yet provided details on what exactly is in this framework. And this morning, Denmark's prime minister welcomed the president saying he's not going to use military force to take Greenland, but he reiterated we can negotiate on everything political, security, investments, economy, but we cannot negotiate on our sovereignty. In other words, as far as they're concerned, Gayle, the U.S. will never control Greenland.
Yeah, Ed, before you go, let's do a little deeper dive on this, because the president arrived, he brought lots of threats, lots of tension, got everybody all riled up, but he's leaving, it seems, some say, without much to show in regards especially to Greenland. Was this trip a success for him? What happened?
If the ultimate long-term goal is to ensure that NATO and the United States are guarding the Arctic Circle, that region, more closely, more carefully, putting more resources there, then the White House is going to argue they are on the verge of achieving that goal, because you've already seen NATO members send more troops just in recent days, and now there's going to be this talk about coming up with some new framework that expands that partnership. But he didn't leave with an agreement to take over the island entirely. There will be no U.S. military force, and Europe is quite upset with him. So, in essence, he didn't get necessarily what he wants, and he upset a lot of American allies.
All right, Ed, thank you very much. Always good to see you.